Hey everybody, I don't know what this is, but I guess it's just ramblings from a crazy guy. I'm really just doing this to get thoughts out of my head. Oh, speaking about it, we're gonna be talking about that's today's topic, I guess. We're gonna be talking about thoughts. So I'm like thinking to myself, what even is a thought? And I don't really know. Like, I think it's like a thought is it a personality trait? Is it really okay? Well, let me start over. So a thought, from what I've gathered, is like a mixture of a couple of things. So it stems from generations of like people idealizing idols or celebrating celebrities. So you got it trickles down this mentality of that we should celebrate and idealize these people who haven't really even done anything of true significance. So it trickles down into the main population, and then it trickles down into like children, and this comes into play when you have kids, like even teenagers, especially teenagers, trying to look like or in, trying to not intimidate. What is the word? Uh, Whatever. They're just trying to look like their idols. Impression, I guess. Impersonate. Yeah, their idols or imitate. There we go. Imitate their idols. So like a lot of girls I see around that went to my school or just in general try to make themselves look like Kim Kardashian or like all these girls, all these different people that they see on TV and in movies. They idolize them. So and I guess like thoughts and like thought behavior or like what is a thought or is she a thought is like a subset of that or is like a mentality that's come from that. So, for instance, um, when she is wearing clothing that's very provocative and trying to like gain attention, that's like thought behavior, or that like she's a thought because she does that, where she's or like she's acting very promiscuous. She's a thought because it's like you got these chicks, you got these girls running around that act in these abhorrent behaviors because I think it stems from like a whole entire thing where it's like girls just don't know how to, women don't know how to act like women anymore, and there's a whole entire thing where they claw at each other and criticize each other really badly, and also guys have a genuine problem with them. Like I think it's just become such a dysfunctional mess. But back to thoughts. So like a thought, which I hate. I don't hate the word thought or the ideal of criticizing a thought. I hate thoughts in general. Yes, I don't want you to think. No, I hate thoughts because like you got these girls who dress really provocatively and wear these clothings that are like skin tight and obviously trying to show off their butt or try to show off their boobs or their like cleavage or whatever, and then they cake on makeup because they're trying to look like their ideal person, which is like someone like Kim Kardashian, and they're trying to look so much like these superstars and these models that they don't even recognize their own beauty. So, for instance, I don't actually use Tinder as a dating app, right? I go on Tinder to laugh at all the people that I see and kind of make fun of them with my friends. Now, that might sound really harsh and mean, but let's be honest here. Tinder is like the hookup app. Nobody's going on there for deep interpersonal relationships to find their significant other. People are going on Tinder to hook up and have sex. And I think it's kind of funny to look at the type of people who are on Tinder, especially people who go to my school. And I guess then that makes that's also a problem because I'm on Tinder and I probably should get off of it. Because if I'm on Tinder, people can see my profile and stuff, and that's kind of bad, and that looks kind of bad on me. Anyway, that's something to consider for another time, another thing. But most of the people I see on Tinder, they use like tons of makeup. They take all these selfies, and they have like a bunch of filters and things that like make them look pretty or make them look like attractive, and it just doesn't work. They look like they look so promiscuous, and like I'm just ready to have sex with anyone who throws me just any kind of money toward me, like I'm a prostitute, and I don't want to deal with that. I mostly swipe like left, and I laugh at them, and I read their profiles and how superficial and narcissistic they are, which is a problem that permeates my whole entire my whole entire generation of just teenagers and people there who are like so self-absorbed and narcissistic and try to look so good to impress others, but they just all have low self-esteem and confidence in who they actually are. And I think that's definitely a problem with most girls, because when I look at most girls, especially on Tinder, they all have like a similar type of archetype where they cake on makeup, they take a selfie, they do this stupid kissy duck face, and they put on a filter, usually like the dog filter. It's not cute, it's disgusting, it makes them look like a prostitute or a hoe or someone who's trying to get attention. And I think this is the antithesis of like what a thought is. So people are criticizing what thoughts and women like this and people like this because they find it to be annoying, and I can understand why they're annoying. But I think the reason why people criticize it is on a much more shallow level. They just kind of don't like. I used to think that people didn't like thoughts because it's like, oh yeah, obviously there's obvious attractive women showing off that they're attractive. But I think it's more like the narcissism and like the kind of very shallowness of just not liking someone who's like a valley girl, which I think thoughts are like the new valley girl. People just don't like them because they're annoying, they're stuck up, and they think they're all that, but they're not. When I don't like thoughts for more of a personal reason and for like more of a deeper criticism on the status of women in the Western world and kind of where women have become, like what they were and how they became this way, and how I see a lot of teenage girls who are just kind of like acting really stupid and throwing their lives away and doing all this stuff that looks really bad on them. So on top of like this narcissistic idolizing of themselves to look like their idols, and how that permeates the rest of society, it's also really hard to actually find like proper relationships, because you got a bunch of girls who want to go out and just have sex with a bunch of dudes and look like all kinds of promiscuous. They don't know what they want they don't know what they want in a man, so they just want to sleep around and try to figure out, and so they look like this. But when you actually got people who want to form a functional relationship with someone who hasn't slept around, the pickings become very slim. It also kind of facilitates a environment where women don't actually want to become smart and intelligent or interesting. They want to just become more and more promiscuous and act like they're like more and more attractive or whatever. So it goes back to kind of one of the problems, or not one of the problems, but like one of the, I guess you could say, one of the kind of general traits that you'll find out of most women, that they're vain, or not necessarily most women, but like I've seen this as a female, like a quote unquote female sin, right? Where they're very vain, they're very entitled, and they are very of themselves, in liking of themselves in their personal image, and how others look at them and like admire them and see them in high regard, in esteem, which kind of like falls back to like the reason why women looked at, or kind of feel this way, is because, you know, back in the olden days when there wasn't like electricity or abundant resources for everyone, women relied on like men to take care of them. So when a bunch of men, the providers, wanted to take care of women, women thought, oh well, that's a very valuable trait. If I look attractive, more men want to take care of me. That's something to value. So I'm going to value my self-image. And if that makes other women feel bad and kind of hate me, well, so be it. At least the people who are providing me and like protecting me from like tigers and bears and cheetahs and stuff like that are the ones who care for me, and the ones that are going to protect me. So that's all I care about. And it also kind of stems from that evolutionary process and that evolutionary thought of, when you think about it, like women are the gatekeepers of our genetic evolution. Like, in order to pass down your genes, they're the ones that have to they're the ones that have to have sex with whatever mate they choose, and then produce their children. So through that, they kind of have evolutionary behaviors that kind of permeate their personalities. So it's like, okay, if I value myself in very high regard, and if I make sure my image looks really pleasing to the men, I'm going to get protected. And in exchange, I'm going to pass down their seed. And of course, naturally, this goes with the ideal that, or not really the ideal, but the biological and evolutionary thing of men like attractive and cute things, and naturally they want to protect attractive and cute things, and so they're willing to die and protect things that they want to have sex with and things that they find cute. So there you go. So women want to look more pretty so men can protect them and provide for them, and men want to protect and provide for the things that they find attractive and want to have sex with. And so naturally, like, that cycle continues and continues. But it boils to a point when you have a society that is like overabundant in resources and is so good at keeping itself self-sufficient and sustained, that we no longer have to worry about things like animals, like wild beasts, constantly and vying for survival and wondering if we're going to live the next day. So women look at the next, like the most important thing, and this kind of funnels into the relationships that modern day men and women kind of have with each other, and the dynamic between that. So from what I've noticed is, women want to become more and more attractive so that the most richest, the most wealthiest, the most powerful and influential men come after them. And that kind of fuels their vanity, because they're getting the biggest, strongest guy, like in the past, to protect them. And all the other women who are also vying for that guy's attention, kind of get shunned. They get jealous. And that woman who's super attractive and super pretty gets to mock and laugh in their face, because it's like, well, my man makes more money than you, and my man can take care of me better than anyone that you can attract. So that obviously means I'm better than you. And so women look after specifically the guys that are providing the most, not in terms of morally, or even like, they're looking at the guys that can provide for them financially. And if they can't get a guy that provides for them financially, they go to the government. So, like, for instance, guys that can provide them financially are usually very successful, very wealthy, and might also be, as a bonus, very physically attractive, and hopefully emotionally stable. But what we see a lot is that girls will choose guys that are the most ambitious when it comes down to financials, but aren't the most stable in terms of other means. And this also kind of goes, thought behavior is like also a subset of prostitution, hoish behavior, and gold diggers. So thoughts are the kind of girls that are going to go after like the strongest, the best, the most wealthy guys, but not they don't go after the moral guys. They go after like guys that will, like, you might be strong, you might be handsome, but if you're not the wealthiest, if you can't provide her with that cash, with that with the jewelries, with all these physical possessions, then you're not that viable. You might be even very morally sound and very morally principled, but you're not providing the upward momentum of political power or the power in society, so that this woman can gloat over other women. So, for instance, gold diggers will go after old men, not because these old men are actually very remarkable, great people, but because they have a lot of cash, because they want to get that upward momentum. So they will pick out old guys who are probably very lonely, who probably don't have wives anymore because their wives have already died, or they haven't gotten married because they were too focused on their own upward momentum financially that they didn't have time to get married and fall in love. So they marry these young, attractive women who, even as an old guy, I'm not an old guy, but I know even old guys are attracted to younger women. Like, there's nothing stopping biology. So even an older guy is going to be attracted to a younger, fertile female body. So they're going to naturally be like, yeah, sure, this young 26-year-old is going to marry me, and even in my old age where I have a lot less dating options, I can still marry this girl. So that's why it's like you got women who will gold dig and who will go after guys that are much older than them, not because they love them or they care about them, but because they have a lot of money and political power and movement to them. And then you got some cases where it's like you got a weird girl who just likes older dudes. And I guess that also stems from they like older guys because they're more mature and that they know how to take care of the women that they date. So women find that attractive. Because, in all honesty, and that's kind of where the morality plays, where girls kind of get tired of dealing with boys and they want men. Men want women and women want men. There's a time where men get tired of hanging around girls because they get boring. They're not mature. They're obviously very immature, and they have all these problems and issues and things and annoying tendencies that they haven't dealt with because they're still children. They're still girls. And the same thing goes for guys. It's like they still have issues and they still have problems and they still have immaturities because they're boys. So I don't want to date that anymore. I want to date up. I want to date someone who's actually mature and on my level. So, eventually a woman would want to date a man and a man wants to date a woman. But in the situations of gold diggers, they don't care if you're a man they don't care if you're a man or a boy. They just want that cash. And that's a subset of thought behavior, because thoughts are the kind of girls that want to just date whoever and whatever, and for attention mainly, so that they fill out their vanity. They want to get that attention from anybody, and they want to date the guy that's going to be providing for them, not because they love and care and cherish him because he provides for them and he's actually good, but because he just gives them that monetary money. Like, he just gives them that monetary gain and he gives them attention. And that's the kind of behavior that we see permeated all over, especially in my generation. Like, I just see so many freaking girls wearing booty jeans and crop tops and having all these chokers and like looking all kinds of hoish and wearing all these makeups and stuff and having all these filters and stuff, not because and without the ounce without an ounce of actual intelligence. They look hot, they're they're attractive, and they just want to go out and have fun and go with someone that can provide them that fun and that attention that they need. That's why you also see like a lot of people are talking about these girls and like, oh man, they have daddy issues. Like all these girls have daddy issues. That like the signature thing that signifies that girl has daddy issues. She has really really short hair. She kind of looks like one of these feminist girls that have like a bowl cut, or they have like a half haircut or whatever. They have short hair and they have like these weird clothing options, or they just look like thots and hoes and like prostitutes, and they all have like chokers. And I don't know, like, and personally speaking, I don't. I actually like chokers, not because of the ideal behind, like, I like chokers as an aesthetical thing. I don't necessarily like the girl or the mindset behind the choker. I just like chokers as an aesthetical thing. Just like I like toe rings. I'm not interested in... I don't necessarily have a foot fetish. I'm interested in... Like, I like toe rings. I just think they're hot. I think they're cute. And nose piercings can kind of... Depending. Like, I don't... And this is another, like, daddy issues signifier, or, like, warning signal for a girl that has daddy issues. Like, a girl that has daddy issues usually has, like, a nose ring or a bunch of, like, piercings. A nose ring is not something I am attracted to, generally speaking. Maybe a nose piercing can be fine. I'm usually into beauty marks. Like, I think beauty marks are actually really hot. Whatever you say about it, I will always fight to the death for a girl with beauty marks, because Jesus Christ, that's really good. Like, beauty marks are really, really good to me. I don't know why. I just love girls with beauty marks, especially when it's on either like the bottom of their lip, like off to the side slightly, or like on their cheek, below their eye, like maybe lining up with one of their nostrils or a little bit above their nostril. That's strong. That's freaking strong, my dude. That's good. But enough about my freaking weird fetishes. Like the ideas that I see in like thoughts, hoe-like behavior, girls with daddy issues, is a culmination of like generations of women being confused on what it means to be women, and how women should act, and how they should be treated, how they should see themselves and hold themselves in the upright position. And you see a lot of women who don't know how to do that, and women that don't know how to like teach other women how to be women. Hold on, I got a verse. I'm bringing out the Bible right now. I'm bringing out a verse real quick. Where is it? That's disappointing. I can't find it, but basically it states that older women should teach younger women how to be women and how to treat their husbands and young men with respect, and how and that's basically that what that particular verse says. It's like older women should teach younger women basically how to be women, like how they should treat men and how they should treat other women and how they should act properly like ladies. However, I feel like we have generations. I just know this, okay? I don't even need to feel this. It's just a fact. At least in my eyes, it's a fact. Women don't. I don't want to speak in generals, but I'm gonna say most women don't know how to teach younger women how to be women. They are jaded that they're not as young anymore, and they're not as vibrant, and they're not as either viable fertilely, or they're not as viable sexually in terms of attracting young, strong men anymore, because they've either settled down or they've already had kids, and other stuff that has happened. So I see like this jealousy between mothers and daughters, because they don't want to have a daughter, because they don't want to teach their daughter how to be a woman, because they don't want, like, okay, all parents want their children to be happy. That's evidently clear. But I feel like there's I said I feel there is a probably deep-seated hatred, maybe subtle, there may be slight, but a hatred for mothers to their daughters, or at least, at the very least, attention. And I think that's always kind of been there, but I think it's more apparent nowadays with the emphasis on being vain, and how women have been encouraged to be more and more vain over the years, that even it applies to the mothers who have daughters being vain and not teaching their daughters how to be women, and so that their daughters end up, and this is turning into some kind of conspiracy theory. It's all my thoughts, but this is just kind of what I've observed and what I've noticed. It seems like mothers have kind of poisoned the way for their children to grow up as proper humans and proper adults. Women don't act like women anymore because their mothers haven't taught them how to be women, so they act from what they can see around them. They kind of apply the tools that they see around them, which is the media. So they look in the media and TV, so they look at what they see on the media and TV, and they imitate. And so when, girls, they don't act like proper young ladies that turn into women. They act like hoes and hookers and prostitutes. And they turn into these things because their mothers didn't teach them any better, because their mothers secretly don't want them to end up happy and in a successful relationship with a good, nice young man. They want to poison them into having a miserable time, because they don't want to actually have their child be more successful than they are. That might hurt their vanity. They want them to be just as dysfunctional as they were. And this also kind of like jumps into the African American community, but I'm not going to talk about that right now. I'm just talking about thoughts and prostitutes and hookers and girls, not and women not acting like women. And like I'm going to make this caveat again and again. This isn't describing all people or all women. This is my general thoughts on things that I've observed from most women, or at least a growing problem that I see happening through the lens that I've seen it. I know plenty of women who are, especially young ladies, young girls, who are nice, appropriate, young ladies who want a nice man and who want to take care of their kids and be motherly and happy and healthy, and are very respectful and kind and, you know, polite and gentle and things like that. But the overwhelming majority of things I've seen from especially the public spaces that I've been in, especially with girls that I've met and that I've seen and that I've interacted with, is described like this, or the general things that I've seen women show themselves as. Sorry. So back to it. You got all these girls that just act like all these ways, and they don't know how to act like women. Retracing. I was going somewhere with this. I was going somewhere. Where was I going with it? Oh, I guess I could go with this route. So it leads back into like the fathers, right, in the household, because I think one of the core reasons, like the core duty of a dad, is twofold. So it's obviously provide for the women and children, but it's also teach the it's to teach the children how to grow up. So mothers are there to nurse the children, provide the children, give the children love, care, and support on an emotional basis, while the father is there to give love, care, and support on a very practical level. Or like at least something that they can put into a physical means. So the father is there to teach the son how to be a man, how to treat women as a man, and how to look at himself, view himself, and act appropriately to be a man, and how to live his life and forge his own destiny, his own future as a man. To give him the tools to deal with problems and to handle himself in the world. I think that's the key focus to a father to a son. And from a father to a daughter, it's to teach the daughter how to view herself, how to respect herself, how to see herself, and how she should be treated. And not in like a vain way of she's better than everyone else, but in the sense that if there's a young man who wishes to marry her and wishes to court her and date her, that there's a standard that she should have. And women today in general don't have a lot of standards. And I'm not talking about like the standards that I was just like previously saying, that you need to be rich and stuff like that. Like actual standards in terms of moral foundation and moral strength. A lot of girls don't have that. They don't know what a good man looks like, or how a good man treats you. And that's what the father is supposed to instill, that you do not date someone who treats you poorly, because you respect yourself more than that. You as a woman have value and worth to yourself. And that kind of thing is what like dissuades the girls from having like these daddy issues, because they didn't get enough love from their father to teach them how to be women, or that they were actually lovely, and that they were smart, and that they were strong, and that they were strong not in the sense of physically, like in comparison to men physically, like how feminists try to push it, but in the way that they are strong in the sense that they have a value and emotional strength that they possess. Fathers teach that to their daughters, so that when they are selecting a man to marry, or selecting a man who can court them, it's a proper man who can do that. It's not someone who they're giving their life away for and they're getting nothing in return. Like I said earlier, that women are like the gatekeepers of our evolutionary genetic I said something specific. Basically, they are the gatekeepers to evolutionary, like, genetics that get passed on from generation to generation. And when I say evolutionary, I mean like just generally genetics that get passed on down the line. They are the gatekeepers of forging the future. They choose the man. The man courts and protects and loves and takes care of the women and the children, and the process starts over and over again. But because you have fathers who are not in the homes, girls choose bad men, and thus they choose bad seeds, and they choose bad men, and they give birth to bad fruit, and the fruit give birth to more bad seeds, and it goes down again and again, like the Bible says, no good tree produces bad fruit, and no bad tree produces good fruit. I know I'm paraphrasing. I'm not saying the whole entire verse quote for quote, but that's generally what it says. That the bad tree should be burned down and thrown into the fire, or should be torn down and thrown into the fire. In the same instance, that women shouldn't be trying to strive to make a bad tree into a good tree, but they should be choosing good trees off the bat, and that their fathers should be teaching them how to pick from a good tree versus a bad tree. What fruit should they bear from a good tree or a bad tree, and how to choose. But then what women go off of is, let's look at what we see in the media, let's look at what we see on TV and movies and stuff like that. And so they end up getting this idea, and this is kind of like the Beauty and the Beast idea of this woman has such strong holy vanity to her that she can turn this bad tree into a good tree to produce good fruit, kind of building up her vanity as this almighty, all holy being that can turn bad people into good people instead of just choosing good people. And the Beauty and the Beast, of course, is like the allegory of you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, and that, you know, there's some good people who just might not look like Prince Charming, who might be put into bad situations. But it's also like the ideal of kind of, the way I see Belle is like she's the essence, kind of similar to how Stefan Molyneux kind of looks at Beauty and the Beast, where Belle is like the antithesis of female vanity. She's beautiful, she's smart, she's more capable than even her father, and her father's been doing his job for how many years, but she can do it better for some odd reason, and that she can turn any bad man into a good man. But it teaches this probably very poor lesson that you can't, unless the person is willing to change, you cannot change someone into becoming a good person. That person has to make a conscious effort and decision to change themselves into a good person. And it's not through your love and care necessarily that they become a good person. It's through their decision to choose to accept your love and care and actively change for the better. Like a good person who's being loved on by another person shouldn't want to be continued, like, I don't want to say shouldn't want to be continued to be loved by that person, but so if someone is donating to me their money, their time, their effort, their love, I want to give back to them. A good person would want to give back to them. A good person would want to would probably feel bad or ashamed that they are unable to give back to this person in their charity and their kindness. Of course, the person who's giving the charity and kindness shouldn't be giving the charity and kindness to get something in return. They should be doing it out of the kindness and charity of their own heart. But the person who they are giving to, it's like the natural effect that they will want to give back. They will want to, in the same way, take care of that person. Very similar to how a parent shows their child and loves their child so much, where they show their child how to take care of themselves and how to live and how to provide for themselves and become functional adults. And in return, when the parent becomes old, they make sure that the kids will naturally probably want to be, are probably very grateful to that person and will want to take care of their parents. Like, that's the kind of natural response. In the same way, a charitable person will naturally make someone more charitable back to them, or give their charity to them. You can't make a bad person want to give charity to you. You just can't. They will have to feel some kind of inner turmoil in some inner change where they want to change to becoming a good person and being charitable back to you. So the idea that, oh, it's just Belle being nice and loving the Beast turns him into a good person is false. It's it's supposed to be, or not even it's supposed to be, how it actually works, and from what I've observed, from what I see, and what I've even experienced myself, it's not a woman's vanity and her holy beauty. Excuse me, her holy beauty that turns a bad boy into a good boy, or the bad guy, the bad cool jock who's kind of a douche into a really nice, respectable young man. It's that guy coming to terms with himself and saying, hey, I really don't like who I am, and these people are being nice to me. I should want to be nice back to them, and I'm going to be nice back to them. This is the way that fathers are supposed to teach their daughters. Fathers teach their daughters, hey, you get a guy who has already gotten this stuff figured out, or has the genuine want to become a good person, and who will try their best to become a good person, and therefore tear down the bad tree that used to be them and make them into a good tree that you will want your daughter to produce fruit for. But because the father is such a joke in terms of modern households, it's absolutely ridiculous. And you know how this all started, where the father is just like kind of like kicked out of the household? The father is kicked out of the household because of the I think it was the overstep of feminism. The overstep of feminism, from rejecting the patriarchy and saying men aren't always right, and men shouldn't always make all the decisions, and the man leading the household, the patriarch of the household, shouldn't always be right and unchallenged, push the whole entire role of the patriarch out of the house. Now, some people might say, oh yeah, we got rid of the patriarchy, but the thing is, it was an archy, like it was a hierarchy, or it was some kind of monarchy, or it was some kind of form of governance. So patriarchy was like a parent governing over the household, specifically like the father. The father, the patriarch of the household, had a role. He had a role, and for a long time he was doing it well. Like there's a reason why that the nuclear family was called the nuclear family. It was a family that was so strong that it could be compared to that of an atomic bomb. Or the most likely case, the nuclear family was that because that was the archetypical family during the times of the nuclear bomb and stuff like that in World War I and II. But the nuclear family, I think of it as it's as strong as a nuclear bomb. It's the archetypical family dynamics and ways of working, and it works that way, and it's always worked that way. Families that have fathers who are strong, who lead, and who take care of the family, and who do the archetypical patriarchal thing of being the strong man in the house who takes care of the family and who has his role, tend to be better off. Like, having a father who has the place of being the father without trying to overshadow the mother in her place is, I think that's as far as credit as I'll give feminism. That obviously you need both a mother and a father. You're going to have mother issues just as much as you're going to have daddy issues, and they're going to be just as powerful and just as destructive, maybe in different aspects or in different ways. Like, if you don't, it ironically kind of affects two different things. If you have, if you have the kid who's like, mother never loved me, or I never had a mother who loved me, I don't know how to be emotional, versus father never loved me, or I never had a father who loved me, I don't know how to be, what I was saying, I had it in my head. I don't know how to be, there was emotional and, dang it. I forgot it. Not social, but like being able to be constructive. I forgot it. Dang, this is what happens when you're doing stuff off the cup. But basically, yeah, like fathers teach their children how to work in a social, structural dynamic. Yeah, emotional and structural. Boom, I got it. Freaking yeah. Okay, so it's like I don't have a mother. I don't know how to be emotional or how to fully like grasp my emotions and be able to communicate and articulate my emotions properly and undestructively versus I don't know. I don't have a father. I don't know how to be structural. I don't know how to live in a structure or function in a structure or function in any kind of structure to be able to form a relationship so that we can be emotional. I am just all emotion. And that's the problem with our generation. We're all emotion, but we're no structure to that emotion. And so it just collapses. But if you have just all structure but no emotion, there's no heart to that structure, and so that structure will just become a hollow shell of itself and just break down anyway because there's no reason to keep it up. So that's where I will give feminism credit, where it's like you need both fathers and mothers. So you have to get rid of you'll have to get rid of the idea that the father is the one and only almighty, never makes any bad decisions, is 100% in charge of the house, and you should make it so that it's, yes, the woman is in a subservient role, but there's a difference between subservience and cowardice. So subservience, the biblical purpose is to be subservient is to be respectful. So, for instance, I am subservient to the customer's orders. So the customer wants this, I serve them that. Or I am subservient to my boss. I respect the position that my boss holds over me, and I treat them as the boss. In the same way, men and women have to be subservient to each other and respectful of each other in their own fields of expertise, in their own dynamics and place in the household. And for what mothers can provide shouldn't be undervalued and underplayed, like arguably that you could say in the 1920s and stuff like that, and through history. It's like, well, yeah, you might be able to provide the emotional foundation for things, but the structural foundation comes from me. And who builds societies? Men. Like, literally, physically we do, and like economically and socially, like we structure things and we build things, and we always had. So we valued that over valuing the emotional side of women, where we got the emotional aspects and parts that women can provide. And therefore we took an overstep where we got rid of men entirely, or the purpose of men, or like the function of men in the household, and we've denigrated men. And that's why you see all these sitcoms and all these things where men are basically, especially fathers, are basically idiots and fools, and the wife can do better than them, and is like this hot mom who's really smart and intelligent and is just with this dumb husband. We've seen this in The Simpsons. We've seen this with Family Guy. We've seen this with a bunch of sitcoms. I've seen this personally with things like freaking what's his name? Sort of with Mike and Molly. I've seen this with a bunch of other shows. George Lopez had this. Freaking parts of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air had this. A bunch of shows. Full House had this. Like, they relied on the father, who's supposed to be this archetypal, serious, smart, stern kind of figure in the household, who's very structured, and they did a subversion of that, where he's very goofy, very silly, very kind of clueless, and very dumb. But then that archetype became a stereotype, or that subversion became a stereotype, and it also became an archetype, and then a stereotype. Like, well, I just repeated stereotype twice, but the point is, the archetype got subverted, that became the new archetype, and then that became the stereotype. And then we said, well, fathers are just goofy, lazy, stupid guys who need their wives to do everything for them, and we have a bunch of shows that are basically accentuating that issue, or not that issue, but that ideal. And so then men's roles get downplayed and underplayed, and then we look at men as like comedy objects or just things to laugh at, and the actual ideal of a man in a male role acting like a man is downplayed. And we got all these other problems, but that's not what this is about. This is about thoughts, and I just somehow turned this on to freaking men's issues, and because I guess it all connects. It all connects. You wouldn't have thoughts if you had fathers in the household. You wouldn't have thoughts if you had men teaching daughters not to be thoughts. So I guess that all just kind of stems from that same thing. Man, it's already been like almost an hour, and I'm still up rambling to myself. I need to get a glass of water and fall asleep to some freaking tabletop RPG podcast. This has been the Rambling Ronin Samurai Smack. God, I hate myself.